All right, this video's just going to be a tutorial on how to draw the 12 sphere tree of life called the KATHARA grid. We're going to do this all with just a compass and a pencil and a ruler. To start off, decide what size you want your KATHARA grid to be. And you're going to set your compass to, I'm going to do 2 inches. So that's going to make a 4-inch circle, which will give me a KATHARA grid that is 4 inches wide and 8 inches tall. So based on the size of your paper or how big you want your grid to be, you're going to set your compass for 1/4 of how tall you want your grid to be, or 1/2 of how wide you want it to be. So mine is set for 2 inches right now. And we're going to, let me find where you guys could see the best, probably about right here. And we're just going to start by scribing ourselves a circle. And I'm going to draw fairly dark lines here, but I recommend you keep your pencil lines light so that you can easily erase them, because a lot of the marks that we make will end up erasing later, but I can't make them light or you won't be able to see them. So also make sure you're able to find that center point again. So from a circle, we're going to create a square. And you do that by first making a line through the center of the circle to the edges. Line number 1. Now with your compass still set at the same setting, first we'll make the perpendicular. So to find a line that's perpendicular to the line that you made, you're going to start by putting your compass point at the end of one of those, at the end of your line where it intersects the circle, and you can just eyeball about where perpendicular would be. But to get it exact, we're going to stretch our compass, open our compass up till it reaches to outside of the circle there. Just give me a second and you'll be able to see. Okay, so now I can reach up there and I can see, I know the line is going to be right around here somewhere. So I'm going to stretch up. I'm going to make it, just scribe a little arc up there, the top, and swing down and do the same thing down here outside of the circle. Okay, now without changing your compass, it has to be set same as the other side. Do the same thing at the other end to make 2 X's. And the intersection points of the X's is going to be your perpendicular to this line. So let me get my longer. Now this vertical line, you can stretch this, make this to be a bit longer. It actually, if you want to know exactly, it's going to go out 1/2. So if this is 2 inches here from the center, it's gonna, your line, you're going to want it to be another 2 inches out from the bottom and another 2 inches up from the top. Straight through the center and straight through those 2 X's. So that's about 2 inches there and about 2 inches there. Okay. Now, the next step will be to make the perfect square that goes around this circle. We're going to change our compass back to the size of your original circle. So for me, that would be the 2 inches. Right there. Now you're going to make some of these little X's again, except you're going to do it where the corners of your square, about where the corners of your square will be. So with our compass set back to the size of your original circle, you're going to go to one of the end points of your lines and then go out here, scribe an arc, swing down, do the same thing below. And you're going to go do that on each of the 4 points. And you're going to end up with 4 X's whose the center of those X's is going to give you the 4 corners of your square. Okay, so they're a little light, but I think you can see that. And all this stuff gets erased, so make your lines lighter than mine. All right. So now, actually, I'm going to switch to a color because these lines are going to be permanent lines, part of the grid. Let's see. Well, maybe I'll wait on that. Wait till I put in my spheres. Okay. So now you should be able to create a perfect square that it's going to be touching the outside of your original circle, exactly where that line hits. And then you're going to go to those center points of those X's that you just made. Okay. Just going to get rid of some of these stray marks. You can also erase this center circle if you want to. We don't need it anymore. All right, this is not the best eraser, but that's all right. My kids always steal my erasers. I like the kneaded erasers. These are my favorite. Okay, now, next thing we're going to do is our compass still set to 2 inches, right? There's more than one way to skin this cat, but this is the way I've kind of got a habit of doing. We're going to go on your vertical line to where the vertical line intersects the top of your square. Put your center point of your compass on that point, and you're going to make a little line. See where on the vertical line up there and down here. And this length here, this will be half of the square, right? So the KATHARA grid is a center square, and then there's a second square that is basically cut in half, and there's half on the top and half on the bottom. So you end up with a structure that is twice as tall as it is wide. All right, so now we have those little points. That's going to be your top point. Now, instead of making the square, this is going to be like a 45-degree angle up to this point, should be. And we're going to draw our top and bottom points of the grid. Okay, now we're going to draw the internal lines. So the KATHARA grid consists of 12 12 signets. They're called signets, circles, spheres. 12 signets and 15 lines that connect them. So for the internal lines, we're going to start with the original square, and we're going to look at it as cut in half. So we're going to look at the top rectangle, the top half of the square, the bottom half of the square, and we're going to connect the corners of that rectangle. The pencil's getting dull. Okay. So from up here to this point over here. And same the other way. And these lines should cross on the vertical line. If they don't cross on the vertical, something might be a little off there. And then we're going to do same thing in the bottom rectangle. Now, the other internal lines that we need are the ones that, as if you can imagine, if this was a rectangle, you would draw those diagonals in, except you're only going to draw this part of it and this part of it and not the whole X. So if you want to do it like technically geometrically, you can go through the process of making two more, pretend you were making another square, and make X's here, here. I'll do the top that way. This is a little longer. There is a short, but let's see. So you can do it with your compass set, just like we did before, to the size of your original circle. Pretend you're making another square, except you just make the top half of it. And you have your top point here, so you can make yourself those two X's. And those are the points that you're going to draw your diagonal to, but you don't need to extend it the entire way. Okay, so get your ruler set and then start down here and just go to the vertical line. Like that. All right, so the other way that you can do it, if you're pretty confident that your other diagonals are accurate with your compass still set at that same 2 inches or the same as your original circle, you can put the point of your compass here on that on that X and just go down and find your point down here that way. And you can connect it that, and so you can make it that way. That is dependent though on the accuracy of your previous diagonals. Okay, so that is your basic KATHARA grid shape. We're going to add the spheres in. My baby compass broke and I need to order another one, but I recommend, if you like to draw this stuff, this is like a regular size compass. I had a little one, a tiny one like this, and that was great for drawing these smaller circles. When you do it with the bigger compass, it gets a little tricky, but that's what we're going to do. So the KATHARA grid, the 12 spheres are located on, wait one moment. All right, so since my baby compass is no longer, I'm just going to use this stencil to make the KATHARA signets and eyeball these to the center. So I'm going to go in order so you know the number correspondences for each of the spheres. So I know the video is sideways, but to orient you, this is the bottom is here, the top is here. And so that's how we're looking at this. And the spheres size-wise, there's not a hard, fast rule for the proportion of the size of the signets to the grid that I've ever seen, but you want to make sure that they're small enough that when you put in, so the 1 will be on this point, the 2 will be this point, 11's here, and 12 is here. When you put these two in, you don't want them to be touching. You want a little bit of space between them. So you want your circles that you draw in here to be small enough for that. So this is KATHARA signet number 1. And at the end of this video, I'll add in the list that tells you for each of these signets has a corresponding color, has a corresponding, it also corresponds with your chakras, corresponding sound tone, and so that's all listed. So I'll put that at the end of this video if you want to screenshot it, so you have that. So signet number 1, red is red. This would be number 2, straight up above number 1. Then moving to the left over here, this is number 3. Horizontal from 3 is 4. Now this is going to stay empty. The horizontal lines where they intersect the vertical, those do not have signets on them. There's actually something else at each of those. They're called density locks. You have the Iyumbi density lock here. Your Azare is it's another density lock. It's also the center point, your center point of your KATHARA grid. And then up here is called the Rajna. So we're going to move diagonally from 4 up here to the vertical line, the center. This is number 5. And continuing on that diagonal line, you have number 6 here on the left side. Okay, nothing there at the center. Well, not a sphere anyway. If you want to draw in the Azare, that's often represented with a tiny hexagon, or you could put in a small square that represents each of these density locks. So now we're going to skip that middle and go over here above your 4. That was 6. This is going to be 7. Then we're going to move along this diagonal. Also, this is going to be number 8 towards the left side, from right to left. 7, 8, 9. All right, so this will be number 9. Skip the center one. Over here, back on the right, is 10. And up the diagonal on the vertical is 11. And up the top we have number 12. Ta-da! Okay, so if all you wanted to do was know how to draw this grid, that's the end. I draw. There's specific ways that these grids fit together, and so I have some other pictures to share. If you want to see how these start to connect with each other, how they interface with each other, and some ideas about how this template, this is our morphogenetic template, right? So it's kind of like the film in an old movie camera. And God source consciousness would be the light. The light shines through the film to create the picture, to create the hologram, to create the manifestation. And so what this is, each of these vertical lines corresponds with a type of God source energy. There's the polarized energies of the electromagnetics. So the magnetic or feminine or negative charge flow comes up and down this would be considered the left side of the KATHARA grid, even though when we're looking at it on the paper, it's on the right. But if you imagine it flipped over and up like on your body, it would correspond with the left side of your body. So these would be signets 4, 7, and 10 run the feminine, magnetic, negative charge flows. The center line runs, the Ire energy also corresponds the magnetic with the sound. Okay, the center line, the masculine electrical positive charge flows called the Mane, Ire, Mane, masculine, electrical positive, light, corresponds with the light. Those run up and down the center, and the right side, or if you're looking at it on the paper, it looks like on the left, but on your body it would correspond with the right side. This is called the Manu, or these would be like the union flows of when these two come back together. We call this omnipolar because it is neutral, but it also contains both polarities inside of it. So instead of just neutral, we call it omnipolar. And so each one of these signets corresponds with a dimension, and this is how, this corresponds with your body. It also corresponds with the planet has a grid, the solar system has a grid, the galaxy has a grid, and so on. And everything, ourselves, our stations of identity, correspond with the levels of this. So do the holographic realities that we can move through. And the way that the grid gets divided up, there's 12 spheres, right? So they're grouped into four groups of 3 spheres. So I have another picture to show how those go together, but real quick. So it would be like we are in what's called density 1, is made up of dimensions 1, 2, and 3, is called density 1. Density 2, this is the density 1 here is the station of our individual incarnate identity. Density 2 is made of dimensions 4, 5, and 6. This is considered the station of our soul level identity. Density 3 here of 7, 8, and 9 corresponds with our oversoul level of identity. And then 10, 11, 12 would be our avatar level of identity or density. This would be density 4. Density 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's look. So what happens is these signets are carrying the frequencies for their dimension that they represent. And as you move up, each one is primary, like let's talk about density, dimension 1. It's primarily, it carries its own, its primary color is red, but it also carries They're called sub-frequency bands. A dimension is a frequency band. That's what a dimension is. And each dimension has the primary frequency bands, but it also carries sub-frequency bands, and each one carries 12 sub-frequency bands. And as you move up, the higher you go, the dimensions will hold the frequency of themselves and also the ones that come below it. So let's look at that other picture, and I'm going to also show you, I told you I would tell you the color correspondences if you wanted to draw that. So let's look at that first. Which one is it? One moment. Be this. And let's see. Well, if you wanted to screenshot this, the KATHARA grid on the right side of the screen there, you can see the numbers and the colors that go with the KATHARA grid. And you can also see, if you zoom in, the numbers of the KATHARA lines. They're all numbered. Remember I said there were 15 lines and 12 signets. On the left side, or the centers, they're called KATHARA centers on this graph. So the KATHARA centers there, those show you the where the centers correspond in your body and what those are called. So you can take a screenshot of that if you'd like and check that out. And let me switch to the next one here. Let's see. This is just a little bit more information about the KATHARA grid itself. If you'd like to read that, you can take a screenshot of that too. And then that tells you more about the lines and how those things, how they work, how energy moves through it and what it creates. And then this here on the right side, now it's talking about chakras, but if you remember, I said that every KATHARA center corresponds with a chakra, so the color correspondences are identical, they're the same. So on the right side of this graph, you can see the list of the colors, and not just like the picture of the colors themselves. You can see the names of all the colors that go with those. Now, I understand there's 15 listed here, and that is because it's referring to our 15-dimensional time matrix, which actually is made out of 2 of these KATHARA grids put together at 90-degree angles to each other. I do some drawing classes and other videos that gets more into that. That's why there's 15, but the first 12 are the 12 KATHARA grid colors there. So it also gives you a little bit of information about your chakras, your auric levels, and where those are located in the body. The first 7 embodied chakras, the base chakra, those are pretty common, pretty well known, except for up here at the pineal gland. Actually, there are 3 chakras that are all interfaced at the same spot at the pineal, which is why it's so powerful. So that is the location of the 6th chakra, your 3rd eye. Also running through there is your 8th chakra and your 9th chakra. The 8th chakra runs on an angle through your head, coming in the back of your head, on the top rear of your head, kind of where that flat spot is, and it comes down on an angle out actually at your throat. That's the orange. What does it look like? It's supposed to be gold. The colors are kind of saturated on this, but you can see that one that looks like it's coming out there at the throat, that gold color. That's the 8th chakra. And then the 9th chakra is running kind of opposite to that. It comes into your head. Well, it actually is coming out of your head, but it's on an angle from like your forehead down to out the back at the base of the skull there. That's your 9th chakra. So that gives you a little more information on those. And then just a couple other pictures I had to kind of show you how these fit together. In the, let's see, in the, what's this? Oop, turn this guy off. Goodbye. Oh, okay. So this is called an Eka-Veka system. This is, you're seeing here, 4 KATHARA grids all hooked together at their 12 point in the center there. And then a tiny KATHARA grid in the center, and then a big one around all the others. So that really big one around the outside, that's called the Akasha, and this has to do with the maps of the God worlds. That big one's called the Akasha. Inside of that is called an Eka-Veka system, and just one of those KATHARA grids is called the Veka. So there's 4 Vekas, and the little one in the center is called the Eka, and together they make what's called the Eka-Veka system. And the of those 4 medium-sized KATHARA grids, the one that we would say is pointed south, if you would imagine, that would correspond with our Veka, our universe. And the one that is pointed to the west, or at 90 degrees, those would be our primal sound and light fields. And that is the bottom of that second grid that's pointed 90-degree angle to ours, is where you start to get the dimensions 13, 14, and 15. And then the rest of that grid is what makes what's called the primal sound field. So the grid that's 90 degrees to the other way, so it would be pointed east, that would be what would be considered our parallel. So if we're talking about our own selves, that would be our parallel self. It would be our parallel Earth, our parallel universe, whatever this is representing, because it all corresponds to all levels of creation. And then the one that's pointed north would be the primal sound and light fields for the parallel. So that would be parallel primal sound and light fields. So all together, it makes up one Eka-Veka system. And that's the next level up is called the Akasha, and it actually builds from here, but we're not going to talk about that right now. So the last correspondence I thought I'd show you just real quick is how it fits into a Merkaba. The Merkaba plugs in at where the parallel 14 chakra would be, or 14 dimension, and the Merkaba has to do with the in and out breath of God's source energy flows that are part of the perpetual motion, eternal life creation. And so the Merkaba is part of that circulatory system, and it is also our travel vehicle. It's part of how we are able to turn ourselves back into light and go somewhere and remanifest again when everything is working properly in our DNA and our structures here. So that's how those things kind of correspond together. And that is it for this. I wanted to show you how to do this basic KATHARA grid construction, and in my my Christic geometry drawing classes, we build on this in all kinds of ways. So I wanted to make this kind of starter video to share this for anybody who is curious and enjoys drawing like I do. Thanks for watching.